All right, today we are diving deep into Sir Arthur Conan Doyle's classic, The Sign of the Four. And look, we're not just going to recap the plot. We are going to get right inside the mind of Sherlock Holmes himself to see exactly how he operates, how he takes total chaos and turns it into crystal clarity, one impossible clue at a time. So to really get Holmes, you first have to understand what makes him tick. And this quote, it says it all. For Sherlock Holmes, a life without a problem to solve is just, well, it's torture. His mind is like this high-performance engine that absolutely needs complicated fuel. Otherwise, it just grinds to a halt in what he calls the dull routine of existence. You know, this constant craving for puzzles is what led him to basically invent his own job. He's not a cop. He's not a private eye in the usual sense. He's something else entirely. He's the guy they call when Scotland Yard throws their hands up, when the professionals are completely lost. He's the final word, the last court of appeal in detection. So what's his secret? How does he do it? Well, it's not magic, and it is definitely not a lucky guess. Holmes approaches crime solving as a pure science, and his specific field of study, he calls it the science of deduction. Now, Holmes is really specific about this distinction. Observation is just seeing things. Anyone can look down and spot some reddish mud on Dr. Watson's shoe. That's easy. But deduction? That's the logical jump. Holmes knows that specific type of clay is only found outside one particular post office, and he knows Watson has stamps at home, so what's the only other reason to go? To send a telegram. See? It's a perfect, unbroken chain of logic. Of course, Dr. Watson, ever the practical guy, is still a little skeptical. I mean, figuring out a telegram is one thing, but a person's entire life story? So he throws down a challenge. He hands Holmes a simple pocket watch that belonged to his late brother and says, "All right, genius, what can you tell me about him?" And this is where you really see the master at work. Holmes isn't guessing, he's reading a story written in metal. The dents and dings, they point to a careless owner. Those 4 tiny scratches on the inside of the case, those are pawnbroker's marks, telling a story of constantly running out of money, with just brief moments of getting back on his feet. But the saddest part? The thousands of little scratches around the keyhole. That tells the whole tragedy. An unsteady, drunken hand fumbling to wind the watch every night. An entire life, read from a few marks. And right on cue, just as Holmes is complaining about how boring the world is, a brand new problem walks right through the door. Her name is Miss Mary Morstan, and she brings with her a mystery that's been haunting her for a decade. Just look at this timeline. It's completely bizarre. First, her father, an army captain, just vanishes. Gone. 4 years later, out of the blue, these incredible, valuable pearls start showing up in the mail. 1 a year for 6 years, from a total stranger. And then today, after all that time, the silence is finally broken. And this is the letter that changes everything. It's a summons, a promise of justice, but it comes with a serious warning. Keep the police out of it. Now, for a mind like Sherlock Holmes, a mind that lives for complexity and secrets, a case like this, it's simply irresistible. So they follow the letter's instructions, and they're taken on this wild, high-speed carriage ride through the foggy streets of London. They end up in a pretty strange, rundown part of the city, not at all what they were expecting. And they arrive at the home of this very odd, very nervous man, Thaddeus Sholto. And right away, the first pieces of this puzzle start clicking into place. Because it turns out his father, Major Sholto, was Captain Morstan's one and only friend in London, the same man who claimed he never even knew Morstan had made it back to the city. Thaddeus then drops an absolute bombshell. His father's deathbed confession. Captain Morstan is dead. He died years ago during a fight over a hidden treasure from India. Major Sholto panicked, thinking he'd be blamed for murder, so he hid the body and kept the treasure all for himself. Those pearls, that was his guilt eating away at him. But his confession was cut short when he saw a horrifying face at his window, and this mysterious note was found. And here's why Thaddeus finally reached out. His brother just located that legendary Agra treasure. We're talking £500,000. That's an astronomical fortune, and half of it, he says, rightfully belongs to Mary Morstan. So their next stop is the family estate, a place called Pondicherry Lodge, to go claim Mary's share. But as they pull up to this huge, dark house, you just get this feeling that something is very wrong. They find Bartholomew's room locked up tight and bolted from the inside. They have no choice but to break down the door, and when they do, they are hit with a scene that instantly turns this old mystery into a fresh and incredibly baffling murder. I mean, the whole scene is just bizarre. The victim has this horrible, unnatural smile frozen on his face. The murder weapon seems to be a single poisoned thorn stuck in his head. The room was locked from within, and the treasure, the whole reason they're there, has vanished. And then the final chilling touch. There's a note on the table, and it has the exact same strange phrase that was on Major Sholto's body all those years ago, and on Captain Morstan's map, the sign of the 4. Well, Scotland Yard shows up, led by the very self-important Inspector Athelney Jones, and to him, this is an open and shut case of a family squabble gone wrong. But Holmes, of course, is already seeing the tiny details that everyone else is completely missing. Inspector Jones takes the simple route and immediately arrests Stadius. But Holmes has already processed the evidence, and it points to a much, much stranger story. A story involving two very specific and very different criminals. So let's follow his logic. He sees a rope, which tells him someone climbed in. He sees a muddy boot print on the windowsill, right next to the unmistakable mark of a wooden stump. Up in the attic dust, he finds tiny, bare footprints, perfectly formed but half the size of a normal adult's. A foreign thorn, an exotic poison, and a strong chemical smell, creosote, leaving a powerful scent trail. Each clue adds another brushstroke to his portrait of the killers. This right here is Holmes's golden rule. It seems impossible that anyone could get into that locked room, but since someone clearly did, he has to follow the evidence, no matter how wild the conclusion seems. And the truth, he knows, is that they came in through a trapdoor on the roof. By connecting that wooden leg to a name he saw on Captain Morstan's old map, Jonathan Small, Holmes has already put a name to one of the killers. The clues have given him a name, a description, and now a scent to follow. But that leaves us with the biggest, most mind-bending question of all. Jonathan Small wasn't working alone. So who is this second person? Who could possibly be small enough to leave the footprints of a child, but strong and agile enough to scale a 60-foot wall, and deadly enough to be an accomplice to murder? Uncovering that improbable truth is now Sherlock Holmes' greatest challenge.